unseen lurkers. Couldn't have picked a better night, thought Sergeant Stryker. There was enough wind and rain to mask any noise her squad, from the Catachan regiment known as the Unseen Lurkers, might make. The world of Cato was moonless, and heavy cloud cover blocked the starlight. The ambient temperature was warm enough that there was no visible vapour when she exhaled. For the expert infiltrators in her regiment, conditions were perfect. It was so dark that even the infovisor sets that helped them see at night were limited in their usefulness. But they were better than nothing. Where equipment fails, sheer Catachan skill will always overcome. Every soldier in Stryker's squad carried a Night Reaper blade, a weapon perfectly designed for after-dark raids, and had covered themselves in mud from the river to mask their scent from the greenskins and their sniffer squigs. They had left behind things that might rattle, and blackened their weapons to make sure that any light from the Orcs' campfires or the Xenos' sickly green glow squigs wouldn't reflect. The Catachan veterans negotiated the forest with the easy diligence of lifelong professionals. They trod in each other's footsteps, aware that the Orcs could have laid any number of traps and mines on the forest floor. The Etruscan Cavaliers had lost more than one patrol to minefields and discarded explosives, and the unseen lurkers wouldn't be making the same mistakes. The ground beneath Stryker's feet was soft. She trod on leafy mulch and broken twigs. On this world, unlike Catachan, there was no need to worry about veinworms, stranglevines, or heretic ants. Her heavy Catachan boots, designed to be resistant to predatory flora and the bites and stings of insects, were largely superfluous here. But she wouldn't be without them. She had fought campaigns on 7 worlds, and these boots had been with her for every single one. "The Etruscans will owe us for this," whispered Hawks. The squad wasn't close enough to the Orc encampment for Stryker to order noise discipline yet. "They already owe us for that time we wiped out the Greenskins heading for their regimental headquarters. The ones with the camouflage," said Dane, the squad's demolitions expert. "And that time we covered some of their platoon's retreat from the lagoon." "Don't complain," said Stransky, Stryker's second. "This is the most interesting thing we've done since we started this campaign." "True enough," said Dane. "There's nothing worse here than a few leg manglers and those giant eye borers. I was keeping more dangerous things in jars as pets before I was 10. "They've gone too far this time though," said Hawks. "How do you lose a Death Strike missile launcher?" "Not being born on Catachan has its disadvantages," said Stryker, who had little patience for what she saw as the repeated failings of their allies. "Incompetence is a birth defect stringently common with those outside our world," agreed Stransky. Stryker smiled. It was true. They'd seen it on Eagle Slaughts, with the 1008th Anglo Auxilia, who let themselves be surrounded and beaten by a force half their size. On Ignobos, the 311th Rangelni Desert Dogs lost their supply train to an ambush to Eldari raiders and later got cut apart while half starved. The few survivors claimed that they hadn't seen the Xenos once. The worst, in her opinion, had been the 99th Herrick's Eagles, who had just advanced into a razor sleet storm on Gamuth 9 and disappeared without a trace. The conversation petered out for a few minutes before Hawks made another observation over the Vox. "I suppose the Devil Turd was too busy to take part in this." "Don't call the company commissar a Devil Turd," said Stryker. "Why not? I didn't think you liked her either." "I don't, but Devil Turd, as foul as it is, actually has some practical applications. Plus, we've all known good people who've died trying to get hold of some." There was a pause. "Fair," said Hawks. "Noise discipline from here on," said Stryker. Striker paused and took a knee, raising a hand to signal the rest of the squad to halt. She examined a tree stump a few feet in front of her. There was a cluster of orc stick grenades around its base. A faint flash of pale green on her infravisor showed a wire leading to another tree. Lots of explosives, she thought. There was too much to try and disarm here quickly, especially in the dark. She took an infrared lumen stick from one of her equipment pouches. Mouthing a prayer of activation, she snapped it. A strong light appeared in her vision. The stick would be invisible in the dark to anyone who couldn't see in the spectrum her squad's infravisors could pick up. She placed it next to the grenades and stepped over the wire. The rest of the squad would see what she had done and follow. Striker saw flashes of light from the orc camp ahead and heard the unmistakable din of rumbling engines and occasional weapons fire in the distance. The greenskins didn't appear to have any interest in hiding their base. The death strike was in there somewhere, and the Catachans had to destroy it before the orcs could use it to do something incredibly dangerous to Imperial forces. If Striker's past experience had taught her anything, it was that the greenskins were just as likely to blow up their own camp as successfully target Imperial lines. The powers that be had decided that no chances would be taken, however. Striker agreed with the assessment. Orcs were too unpredictable to be allowed access to such a weapon. Additionally, the insult of stealing the vehicle had to be repaid, and it gave her and her squad something more interesting to do than the scraps they'd been involved in so far. The Catachan sergeant stopped again and sent 3 vox clicks, which was the pre-agreed sign for the squad to split up. The second element, consisting of Dane, Stratsky with his shotgun, Ratch with the flamer, and Cobra, the squad's medic, were to make as much noise as possible at the ordered time to get the greenskins' attention. That would give Striker and the others an opportunity to storm in, plant some crack grenades and a melter bomb or 2 on the death strike, then get out. She barely heard her troops slink off to the right. In 30 minutes, they'd begin the assault. From here, Striker slowed the pace of the squad's advance. She strained her ears and eyes. It was imperative they weren't found. For all the Catachan's bravado, this mission was not a task to be taken lightly. The reason Striker had let her squad talk the way they did was because, when the lead hit the flak, they could get the job done. Many regiments talked a good game, but there was always something that let her know the difference between the braggers and the professionals. It was something subtle, impossible to articulate, but every one of her veterans had that quality. The silhouette of a lone orc sentry broke Striker's reverie. She halted immediately and signalled for the others to do the same. The creature was of middling size for its kind, its shoulders hunched. The sentry scanned the terrain around it nonchalantly, its nostrils flaring as it smelled the air. The greenskin's eyes glowed in the view of Striker's infravisor. It carried a stubby pistol and a big cleaver, and an axe hung through a loop on its belt. For Striker to recognise colours with her infravisor on was impossible, but regimental intelligence had told them these orcs were Death Skulls, who apparently had a bizarre affliction with the colour blue and stealing things. All orcs died the same way though. Striker crept closer to the sentry, keeping a low profile and a finger on the trigger of her flash and sound suppressed las carbine. She did not want to use the firearm unless she absolutely had to. It was harder to guarantee a swift kill with the weapon against brutes as large and as tough as greenskins, and they couldn't afford a wounded orc roaring in pain and racing to warn the others of its kind. This needed to be quick and clean. It required knife work. Good. The greenskin was facing where the Catachans were hiding. Striker needed it to turn around, so she could take it down from behind. She also needed to bring it to her. The less movement she had to make, the less likely she'd be spotted. Striker felt the floor around her position and closed her fingers around a piece of broken bark. "Emperor, grant me your favour," she prayed. With a swift motion, Striker threw the lump to a position in front and to the left of the orc. The noise of it brushing through branches and thumping into the floor was ample enough for the Xenos to investigate. It put itself exactly where Striker wanted it, and had even holstered its pistol to pick up and examine the bark. The Catachan drew her Night Reaper and advanced quickly behind the greenskin. With her last step, she jumped onto the creature's back, wrapped a powerful arm around its jaw, and drove her razor-sharp knife deep into its neck. Striker needed to reach the creature's vocal cords, and she had done this enough times to know exactly what it felt like when the blade finally cut through. In the same moment that she felt hot blood rush out of the orc's sliced flesh, an acrid reek exploded in her nostrils. The sentry struggled hard, shaken violently and trying to bring its cleaver to bear against Striker, but the Xenos lost strength rapidly as its life force glugged out. When it died, Striker let the body down as lightly and quietly as she could, muscles straining beneath its lumpant mass. She wiped the creature's blood from her blade on the rags it was wearing. A lot of the gore was on her as well, but it wouldn't be an issue if they encountered the sniffer squigs. The orcs fought so much between themselves that the smell of greenskin blood was part and parcel of the disgusting aroma that their camps gave off. Striker could tolerate alien blood on her person if she had to. Such a thing was unfortunate, but to be expected in a life fighting the Emperor's wars. Tainting her blade any longer than necessary though? Not an option. Striker sent through 2 vox clicks to her party. Move. They were approaching the camp's outer pickets now. Just before the edge of the tree line, Striker stopped and ordered the squad to form up either side of her. Ahead, a small party of Gretchens sat around a fire, poking a caged squid with sticks and laughing at their own flatulence. The light of the fire made it impossible for Striker to see through her infravisor, so she removed it. In theory, these greenskins should have been keeping an eye on the perimeter. Striker would have liked to find some way to unleash the squig on the diminutive greenskins, but knew it would cause far too much noise. Also, once the enormous-jawed monster had finished with the Gretchen, it may well scurry into the trees and turn on the Catachans. Instead, Striker crept to each of her soldiers in turn, whispering different targets into their ears. After returning to her original position, she took aim at the bulging eyes of the squig she had decided to kill herself. Content that she had lined up a killing shot, she gave the order. 6 las carbines fired, plucking Gretchen from their feet. They all died immediately, bearing scorch wounds in their temples, and a thin wisp of smoke trailed into the air from the squig's burnt-out eyes. Striker looked at her mission chron. 15 minutes until the major attack began. She ordered the squad to move in. They skirted around the edge of the fire to avoid being caught in its light, then entered the camp. The squad advanced slowly, moving from cover to cover, double-checking corners, clearing crude shelters and sticking to the shadows. The sound of reveling orcs was more pronounced here, but the squad encountered mercifully few of the creatures, which they put down with either precision las fire or their Night Reapers. The Catachans passed piles of greenskin litter, mounds of bones picked clean of flesh, scrap waste, debris, ramshackle barricades, and befouled rags. Striker's nose wrinkled at the smell. The Xenos reeked, almost as bad as a cluster of pus worms chewing their way through a decomposing grox. The greenskin camp was a great sprawl. If the Xenos did attack, they could work their way to the Catachans from almost any direction through the morass. Striker's squad avoided the searching beams of glow squigs and lay in pools of hideous, viscous fluids to avoid orc patrols. They searched for signs of the death strike, track marks, a trail of discarded components, even the remains of the crew. A vox click from Nor told Stryker that a trail had been found. She dashed over to Nor's position and saw what was, without question, track marks from a Chimera chassis tank. That had to be it. The sheer number of orc footprints all around it gave it away. She didn't believe that greenskins who specialised in looting would have been that excited about a standard Chimera. Stryker quickly rallied the squad to her position. From here, they could sit tight until the diversionary attack began in less than 5 minutes. A hellish screech from the east side made Stryker and the Catachans hold their ears. An almighty chorus of automatic weapons fire followed, punctured by booms of shotguns and delighted-sounding orc war cries. "They made us, Sergeant," said Stransky over the vox. "We're strung out. Dane is hit." "Continue as planned. Draw them away," Stryker ordered. "Those with me, go." She had only run about 10 yards when an orc emerged from the dark to her right flank. It was draped in camouflage rags the colour of rust, iron and mud. It grinned at her. A single gold tooth sparkled in the flash of firelight. "We did want some more interesting work," she said as she raised her las carbine to fire.